Hey guys, today's video we are going to take a stock 4-gear and we're going to go pretty much all out on it, as far as all out with all of the parts that we make that we can put on this car. There is obviously more that you can do to these, custom gears, custom armatures, that kind of stuff, but we're going to take all the store-bought parts off the website, put them on this car, see what kind of time and speed and improvement we can get out of it. So we are going to start out making a couple of test hits with this car. We will see what it runs. Probably do 5 passes. Oh my gosh. That's just painful. I don't even want to do 5 passes. 1.322, okay? So that was first pass. This will be our second pass. It's no secret that these cars aren't, they're not the greatest, but we're gonna make it great again. 1.3001. So, I mean, if we were drag racing on a 1.3 bracket index, I mean, that thing would have been almost spot on, which is awesome, but it is going to be inconsistent. This will probably be the last pass, and then we'll go tear into it. I mean, I can see it like lurching, jumping, doing all kinds of stuff. So, okay, so that's what we got. 132, 130, 131. Pretty much where it's at. We're going to try to get this thing under a second, maybe even in the 8s. Let's go. All right, guys, we have the patient here on the table. Bone stock, I mean, it is what it is, but we're going to go ahead and tear into this thing. So we know we're going to be using the Viper pickup shoes and springs for the Magna Traction or the 4-gear. Okay, and then let me grab my pliers so that we can pull. We're going to remove this stock guide flag. So things are super long. I mean, if you look at this, it's already hitting the bottom of that. So a lot of the noise that you hear from these things is actually that right there. We remove that, and we're going to put in a Viper, the Pro guide pin, G Plus V1, same guide pin, also fits in these guys. Okay, that is in there. One thing we're going to look at just as we pull this thing apart, you can see this spring plate is a different height than that one. So if you look at that, kind of that plane. So we do need to get that guy bent and fixed to be a little bit more level. Probably needs a little tiny bit more work than that, but we'll get to that point. Right now, we're going to go ahead and pull. Let's see, let's grab my little screwdriver. Probably going to be in and out of that drawer a few times today, but I like to take the little screwdriver and just pop this clip off. We're going to pop out the gears. If you're doing this, make sure you're noting what is up and what is down. On these gears, they have a little recess. You can see both of these have the recess on this side, and the other side is flat. The flat side you want to put up. So one thing I like to do is spin this with it, nothing else hooked up. It's actually really, really tight. Has no side-to-side play, which is not ideal. So we're going to do a couple of things here. One thing I am going to do is see if I loosen this up about a half of a turn, if it starts to spin better. Sometimes you can get away with not tightening that down all the way, but it's pretty bad. But we're going to pull that screw out of there, throw it in the bin. We will lift the unit with the armature up and out. And now you can see our brushes are kind of just sitting here. And the brush springs, which we're just going to dump this stuff out. The springs are actually staying in there. One of them did. The other one did come out, yes. So the motor brush springs are obviously a lot shorter than the pickup shoe springs, and they're bigger diameter, just in case you run into that problem. We're at a point where the car's pretty bare. We are going to pull these axle setups out of here. I mean, this thing's just flopping around, doing things that don't really want it to be doing. But since we're back on the bottom here, I'm going to go ahead and flex this just a little bit to try to get these straightened out the best that we can and try to get them as even as possible. I'm just eyeballing them. I mean, if you were building a full-on, like the baddest of the bad, you probably would want to go a little bit further than that. But I'm going to go ahead and pull the rear wheels off real quick. This thing ain't going back on the track until it's like fully done. Like we're going all the way right now, just because there's no sense in going step by step with front wheels, rear wheels, like it's that stuff. We're going all out on this one, so we need to go all the way here. Okay, so rear wheels are off. We're gonna pop the fronts off. The rears are pretty easy to get off without damaging anything. The fronts, on one side you can see the axle, the other side it's kind of like smashed in there and you can tell which side they pressed in there. I like to go on the side where you can see the axle, and then I use my press and it comes right off. You can press this back in there, and usually, I mean, I don't know anybody that would reuse this, but at least if you do it that way, it makes it to where that is reusable. Anytime we do this on customer cars, we obviously always save all of the parts that way. You know, somebody doesn't feel like we have kept their parts, because I know that that is a concern for a lot of people. We have no business to keep any of that stuff. So we got the chassis pretty well stripped down right now. You can see the rear axle slides around pretty floppy in there. Not a lot we can do about that. You can peen it, but we're not going to worry about that today. So at this point, we are going to pull the pinion gear using an RTHO puller. Let me get it set up here, and then I'll give you a better view of what's happening. Okay, so now we're set up on there, and we're just going to break that guy loose. Came right off. Armature comes out. And we won't need that again unless something else funky happens. So we're going to take the new armature. This is a 5.5 ohm armature. The OS3 5.5. Really, really good arm. And we're going to get this guy in the RTHO press. Oops. Let's try this. So we're going to install the gear. These things really fit very, very snug into these arbors. As you can see, very, very snug in there. And then we will put this guy on there and slowly bring it down until I feel it touch. And then I'm going to go ahead and look and make sure that everything is on center, which it looks like it is. And we're going to proceed to press the gear on there. I might have pressed it on too far, but that's okay because we can pull it back off a little bit. I really didn't want to go on very far at all. But you can see it's pressed on, you know, way too far where that thing doesn't even spin. So make sure you don't do that. That's my bad. This might be kind of fun getting this back underneath there because there's almost no room to sneak this guy in there. Okay, so we're just going to raise that up a smidge so that our armature, it doesn't really spin very good, but it does spin free. We are going to oil the bottom side just because we can access that, so we'll put a little bit of oil in there. If you get oil on the top side of the armature, it's not the end of the world. You want to look out for the calm side. That's the part that you really want to be careful with. But that's spinning much better now. So we can move our tools back. And now we want to put brushes and springs in there. So we're going to go ahead and put a set of brushes. I am going to lap these things on a piece of paper real quick. You guys have seen me do this before. This just makes them flat. The paper is abrasive. And if you're worried about doing it correctly, do a figure 8 pattern. And just prevent a little bit of unnecessary break-in. I mean, this is just kind of fast forwarding that process. Okay, sweet. So those two are ready. Put these invoices back over here. And we are going to get, see, those are pickup springs. We're going to get some new brush springs out. So these are the brush springs that are available on the Viper site. Just put this other stuff back in here. These guys are stuck together. Hopefully, let's see, I better grab my tweezers. You guys know I like to send springs flying. But when they're coiled up like this, it's kind of tricky to not do that. But we got it. So we're going to drop that one in there. Drop our second one in there. Okay, and then our brushes. Drop in place. Everything's nice, smooth so far. So I am going to put just a small amount of oil down on the bore for the armature, and then I'm also going to put just a little bit on here. I mean, not even a drop. It's just whatever's on the tip of that thing we're going to put in there. So now we're going to try to install this thing without the brushes popping up and out, which that went pretty smooth. So now we have that whole system together. I do like to make sure that if I push on the armature shaft, let's see here, that there is some movement in the armature still. But at this point, we're going to put this screw back in. Okay, and I'm going to make it tight, and then I'm going to back it off just a smidge. While we're at it, we might as well oil back here. And we will oil the cluster shaft gear. So this thing, sometimes this cluster shaft is like really, really wobbly. It's a big time problem. This one wasn't too bad. But at this point, I think we're gonna probably put the pickup shoes on it, and we'll make sure that the thing sounds the way that we want it to sound before we go ahead and do anything else. So getting out the Viper Magna Traction pickup shoe springs. Hopefully we don't send any of them off into oblivion. The Magna Traction / 4-gear pickup shoes. Very carefully install so that the springs don't bail on us. Okay. Okay, we got away with it. So those are both on there. That side is actually very, very stiff, which if you look at the spring plate, you can see that the spring plate is bent. And when I compress the shoe, it's not really even compressing the spring like this side is. It's just bending around that. So there's not a lot that you can do about that other than remove the whole thing. I have pushed this down kind of with my tweezers here, and you can see we got a little bit of movement out of there. So we'll see, since it's a drag car, if the front end is a little bit stiffer, it's not going to be the end of the world, but that's not ideal. Okay, so sounds really good. We don't need to run it any more than that. We will go ahead and put a little bit of oil on all of our gear, the post, and then we will go through, make sure that these guys are getting installed the flat side up. Okay, a little bit of oil on the teeth and on the top side, and then we will come in and grab our clip. Okay, so now our whole unit is together. We're literally just needing front and rear rims, which I'm going to put this on the run stand. 5 volts, pulling 0.15 amps, so not too bad at all. And I am going to go grab the 360 single flange rim for the 4-gear and a 420 Razor front end for the 4-gear real quick, and I'll be back. All right, so we've run this guy for a few minutes while I went back and grabbed the Razor front end. I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. So no tools required for the Razor front end. I did narrow the axle on this thing, so this is a narrowed version. That way, if you're buying one and you're going to put it on your 4-gear, just know that this is a narrowed version. You can just cut it with a die grinder. And then now I am going to install the front tires, which I like to use pliers, and I open them up so that they pop right on there. You do want to make sure that they roll smooth. So you might have to kind of work them into place, seat them, whatnot, but that looks really good. And then these are our new single flange 360 rear rims, which we are going to have to press on there. So we'll get them pressed on. They use the narrow rear PST tires, so it's a super narrow setup. I mean, if you're running an aftermarket unit or aftermarket body or wheels or whatnot, you'll end up like Pro Tracks will be narrow like these ones as well. So we do have tires for them. A lot of guys love the billet aluminum look, which I do too, but they're not always the most precision. When we start making aluminum ones, that definitely will change. But for the time being, the ones that are available are not nearly as precision or smooth as our plastic ones. So our plastic rims are made on a screw machine, very, very, very high tolerance. They're very, very concentric, which makes for a really good car. So this thing is almost ready to hit the track. So it's actually, I'm not sure where we are time-wise, but this is going by really, really quick. So, okay, so there's our rig. We're gonna go ahead and set it on here. I will look through, make sure the car looks good. And I like to run it back and forth on here, and I'll look underneath the car to just see if there is any pickup shoe adjustment that needs to be made. You can see these are toe heavy. So I put my fingernail right in the back, give it a little bit of a bend. I am anti-bending shoes, but when it comes to the 4-gear, depending on which size tires you're running does make a big difference. You can see this side, it's getting a little bit more of a line. This side still needs a little bit more. And once we get it close, we'll do the rest on the track. So okay, that looks pretty good. One thing I am gonna do that I haven't talked about before is these traction magnets. This one is below flush. This one is too, but it's not as much below flush. So what I like to do is hang the back of the car off of, hang the tires off to where the bottom of the chassis is sitting on the rails, and then I just tap until it pushes the magnet down flush. Okay, and I'll look at it, see if it's flush. We got to go a little bit more. You got to be careful, because if you go too much and the car doesn't want that much downforce, you could actually slow it down. So you don't want to do that. But the one good thing about it, if you go too far, they will go back in. So those are nice and flush now. This thing is ready to go out and hit the track. I'm going to put a little bit of oil. I don't remember if I oiled the front end already. I think I did. Okay. But this sucker is ready to go rip now. So this looks exactly the same, but let's go see how it runs. All right, guys, we are at the track. We have our hopped up Autoworld 4-gear with all the Viper upgrades. We ran 132, 130, and a 131 last time out. So we're gonna run this baby. We're hoping to go under a second. I believe we did. Let's see. 803. Huge. I mean, that's a half a second right off the cut. So that is awesome. I think he will be very happy. And if it continues to run right there at that number, that is very, very good for the index racing that we do. So pickup shoe wear, if you want to look real quick, you can see, because it's light tension, it's not going to be a very defined line, but there definitely is a mark there. We could do this. We are going to do a video on this at one point, but if you put dry erase on here, I don't know if that actually works that good because it's kind of coming off. But this should show us a nice line of where the pickup shoes are. Back that up a smidge. Second pass. All right. 807. And as you can see, nice line right through there. So excellent. I think that the consensus here is that we made the right choice. You know, so we're within, on the third decimal place, we're within 4. So if you go over 3, this is 21 thousandths difference. And on this one, it's 10 thousandths difference, where right now we're 3,000 or 4,000 split. So really good, really consistent. Do one more pass and I think we'll wrap this guy up. So things ripping real good. So 832, what? I wonder if that's because I wiped that marker off. I wonder if there's something on that thing. That's kind of weird. I don't really have anything out here to clean that with, but that might have, if that was what it was. I used my sweatshirt or my jacket to clean it off. I could tell it's a little lazy out of the hole, which is where it's gonna need that. So, but yeah, 842. So putting that dry erase stuff on there probably wasn't the best idea. I'm gonna go clean the shoes real quick and we'll be back. All right guys, I went up and properly clean the pickup shoes. Make sure that none of that dry erase is on there. That was probably a bad idea, because that, I mean, 823 or 824, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just where it's wanting to run. But it still is just kind of funky to go 8.0s and then to jump into the 820s. See what we got. 809. So I think that's a wrap on this thing. You can barely see the pickup shoe wear on there, but it is starting to show, which is good. I think what happened was when we covered it, ran it, obviously it wore some of it away, and then when I smeared it, I think it drove it back into the pores. So even though I cleaned it with the brush, that stuff, if this is porous, it might still be in there. So that probably wasn't a good idea. Don't use Expo dry erase to check pickup shoes. Do it the old-fashioned way, just take a look at it. But I think that wraps it up. 8.0 car, half a second gain. Can't beat it. Have a good one. We'll see you at SCDRL.